Yeah, no, I guess that thing had disappeared, the little red square.
Did it? Oh no, I mean I disabled it, so
Oh,
should be.
well, now I see it.
Yes, I started again.
Okay,
Okay, let's see if this one actually makes it past
a minute.
a minute.
Cool.
Yeah. Um, hopefully this one will
Word.
will be okay. Uh, okay, I will keep an eye on it. Okay, phew.
Okay.
So we do have somebody watching. Okay, so let's try that all over again from the beginning.
Okay. All right. Hello. Welcome to the Terrace Neighbors podcast. And now live feed. Again, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Taylor. Then we did not notice that our stream had gotten blocked by YouTube for some reason. So let's be very careful what we say because I guess they're
Okay.
listening. Um, but yeah, this is our housewarming party. We decided because we just moved. Courtney is in her new place, like in the new place.
Yes, very much so.
Yes,
It's getting
I'm in my new
cute.
place. It's okay. Um, um, but yeah, we basically I lost my train of thought. Like now that we've had to redo this.
I think I was talking about like my transition over to
Yes,
Japan versus the
yes,
States.
yeah. So that's
So,
that's that's kind of the point of this video is we wanted to talk about like
transitions.
transitions, like what your move back to Japan was like, and um how it compares to when we were in school. Like I know that we're not the only Terrace Neighbors podcast anymore that is like based in Japan or
Hmm.
has that connection. But I do feel like that's kind of one of our big draws. So I was curious about your take, and then we can share stories, and I have a bunch of questions and that sort of thing. And then also, if people have questions
Okay.
too, you can tweet at us or post in the chat. I'm looking at it now. I'm not going to look away because last time I did, the stream stopped. So, but yeah, how are you doing today, my friend?
Really good. I've had a very good week actually at school. I'm so glad we're back in school. I guess, do you want me to talk about just kind of in general moving over here, the quick overview kind of thing, or?
Um, well, I guess maybe we could sort of talk about maybe the timeline first,
Okay.
like when you moved over, kind of how things have been, because I know you've spent most of it sitting in your apartment.
Yes.
Um,
Which is why I've been able to get it so like decorated and set up because that's, just hanging out. So let's see, timeline. Early March got here. Um, and pretty much I just stayed at like my company's dorms for most of March, just looking for a place. Also, just kind of chilling because it's not like not working, just kind of figuring out, taking my time, relaxing. The pillows at the dorms weren't very good. They were like those like really stiff. I guess I don't know if they're filled with rice or some kind of beans, but like they don't move very well. So I kept waking up with my neck like was stiff. So I
they were
luckily
hazing you.
I guess luckily my well I guess I shouldn't say luckily, but kind of because it was unfortunate. But my roommate that I was gonna have ended up not coming. They decided to stay where they were, so I took their pillow. So it made it a little bit more like bearable because at least like my neck wasn't so like I don't know like it just put it at a weird angle. At least it was up higher, so it was a little bit better. Um, so towards like mid and March, I was like going around to different like real estate places and looking at apartments. Found my one that I like here. Moved in end of March, and then again had a couple of weeks before we did training in April. April finally get to school, but the students aren't there for reasons, and basically we just kind of hung out for about it was like a week or two. Was it 2 weeks? I feel like it was only like a week or so, and then they were like, okay, let's just stay at home and work from home, and that's where I've been until the beginning of June, and now I'm so happy to like be in school because the students are all like super nice and some are really shy. And
Yeah.
it's awkward for everything because like the teachers still are kind of getting to know me. The students are just like, oh my gosh, who is this? I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I make them like me? Usually smile and wave
Mhm.
tends to
It's
work.
a good,
So
very good method, I feel
thank
like.
you. But that's been kind of my, I guess, recent timeline.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it it feels like you've been so very you gotten very little done just because of like the state of the world and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So my first question that I had is kind of what made you decide to move back? I know like myself, like I've been thinking about I feel like every year I go, that's it. I'm gonna move back to
Uh-huh.
Japan. I can't stand living in America anymore. I'm gonna move back to Japan. I mean it this time. And then the idea of actually like packing up my stuff and doing visa things and finding an apartment, it's like, and then it's another year rolls by. So what made
uh,
you kind of
I
decide
guess
to move back?
in my case, it was like, okay, yes, I had, my house in South Carolina. It was nice. That was cool. I don't like my job, even though it's not like it was a stressful job, but it was just
No,
the
your job sucked.
yeah, it did. And it's just like it, I wasn't using my full potential also there. It's just you're being micromanaged and it's just this is stupid. Why am I doing this?
I
So,
don't want to be that person though, but I will remind everybody I did tell you.
okay, fair enough.
I told you
but
so.
but it was like, okay, I always told myself, like from when I kind of first started, um, like 3 years. After 3 years, I'm gonna go to something else. I'm gonna take this out of the way. There, I'm just
What?
falling down.
What was that?
It was like a little cover thing for the webcam or whatever, but it's like it was like falling off, so it was like this. I was just like, it's gonna get in the way. Anyway, sorry. Um, so I was like, okay, it's 3 years. I gotta start looking for something else. And then that's when we had it like around that time. That's when we started planning our trip. So we had our
Mm-hmm.
trip, went back, and it was like coming back to Japan. I was like, oh yeah, I remember. Like I guess it was a little bit of nostalgia from when we studied abroad for college. So there's like okay, the nostalgia factor. I do enjoy speaking Japanese, so it's fun speaking it. Um, I kind of, I mean, it's kind of the family curse that like anyone will come up and talk to us, or I guess that we're outgoing to talk to like kind of random people. So like even when I was going to like the stores and stuff here, it's like I would just start talking to people, like the pickles guy, and he let me eat all the free samples of pickles, and I mean like little interactions and things like that that I really enjoyed here in Japan. Plus on top of that is like okay, yes, for like a lady alone, I think it's more accessible for moving here
Mm-hmm.
and feeling safer. Not that it's like that nothing could happen, but there's a different sense of security, I think,
Yeah,
in comparison.
I feel like that's one of the things I miss the most is
Mm-hmm.
just like I mean, I feel like there was a certain degree of like, texting when you get home, but I feel like that was more just because like, we were drunk
Mm-hmm.
or like it was really but I feel like here there are all these like within my friend group there are all these like little things that you do to ensure that someone gets home safe. It's like you're
Yeah.
going on a date, okay, tell me who, where, when, text me when you get there, text me halfway through the dinner, text me
Mm-hmm.
when you're on your way back. Like there's all these things that you do like with each other in order to
Right.
ensure
Like
safety, but it's
send
just
an apple emoji and I will come into the store or
yeah.
something.
And I feel like the only like literally the only time I ever felt like I had to do that living in Japan was like my very first date. And I
Mm-hmm.
was really nervous. And he asked like, where do you want to go? And I picked Kawasaki
Mm-hmm.
because I figured like, okay, if something happens, Courtney lives here. And so I could like go run into a bathroom, call her, and then like make a mad dash to her apartment. Like
Yeah.
that was kind of the way that I was thinking. But like, yeah, I was like, we would go out, be out by ourselves at all hours of the night and not really have to worry. And
No, I missed last train once. And it one stop away, and it stopped at the one stop right before my stop, and it was like almost one, two
uh,
a.m. I don't know. It was like around 1, 2 a.m. And I'm like walking alone through the streets, and like what as I right before I'm like getting close to my house, I passed by like a police box, and they're like, "Hey, are you okay?" It's like, "Oh yeah." I'm like, going right over there. And even with the police, we're all smiling and like, hey, yeah, I know where to go. See you guys. And I'm like, see you. So
Yeah,
everyone
yeah,
was
yeah.
smiling. So it's just like, in that aspect, yeah, I don't know. I know, like, even just walking in my own neighborhood back in South Carolina, it was a good neighborhood too. Like, it was a nice
Mhm.
neighborhood, but sometimes it was like kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Walk around at like 10 o'clock at night
Yeah.
and 2 o'clock. Ooh, I don't know, 2 a.m.
Yeah, I had that same thought, I think night before last with taking out the trash at like
Mm-hmm.
1 o'clock in the morning. Like I'd stayed up
Mm-hmm.
too late and I was like, oh, take out the recycling before I go to bed. Um, and being out at like 1 a.m., even though I was like literally only walking to the other side of my building
Mm-hmm.
on like a pretty quiet, safe street, was very on high, like on very high alert. And then I was thinking like I might have told the story of the time that I had like extra time between like when classes ended and I was flying
Mm-hmm.
back to the States for Christmas. So I decided to switch to California time,
Mm-hmm.
like still in Japan. So I was like waking up at midnight and going to bed at like 2 p.m.
Uh-huh.
and that sort of thing, which I could do because you had like 24-hour 7-Elevens and that sort of thing. And I was bored. So I was like, I'm gonna jog. I'm gonna go on
Oh,
jogs since there's nobody out and it's nice and dark
yeah.
and I can run under the cover of night. And so I did that a couple times until eventually I reached a point where there was a big tanuki statue by one of the restaurants in my neighborhood. It was
Mm-hmm.
really big and scary, and so that spooked me.
Oh,
and, I, and then that kind of killed
understandable
it.
though.
I was like, that's a really scary looking tanuki. Like it wasn't even like a statue. I think it was like a stuffed creature or
Oh,
something.
I don't like that.
But I think about that all the time. The fact that I was like 19 years old
Mm-hmm.
and was just like, I'm gonna go jog at 1 a.m. because that seems safe to me.
Yeah. But I
But
mean, I guess like all those kind of factors on top
mhm,
of each other, it just was like, I want to change. And if I make a change, but like I'm going to somewhere where I'm familiar with, in general, can speak the language pretty decently. I mean, I was able to find an apartment by myself multiple, like, couple times on
yeah,
my own. So it's like, I can get around in society pretty okay. I want to do better,
mhm.
but if I'm gonna go somewhere totally different, Japan's a good choice. So that's kind of the reasoning, I guess, behind why I came back.
This current process than it did 10 years ago, like, I mean, anything like from the visa process, or if you can remember, like setting
With
up
the
your board.
visa stuff, let's see. I mean, pretty similar to like with the student visa, except compared to the student visa, like I think with that one, you had to show like a certain amount of funds either in like
Yeah.
your bank account or your parents. You didn't have to do that for this one. For I guess it's like the education visa or something,
Mm.
whatever that job category it's under. But I mean, you fill out the form, the COE form, the certificate of eligibility form was pretty much the same or similar to like the student one. Put your little tiny picture on there, fill it out.
Mhm.
Sent a copy to my company because yeah, I sent a copy to my company so that they could then send a copy to the visa people, but I held on to it. And then eventually it took, how long did it take? I was pretty quick. As soon as I knew I'd gotten the job back in November, I sent like all of my stuff before the end of November because I also had to send them my college degree. So I sent my university, my degree. Um, I think I did end up actually sending the physical COE form, but I made, oh, that's what it was. I sent the physical form plus their other like forms that they wanted for registering and stuff and all that with the company. But I noticed I had made a mistake, so I redid it and just sent them a copy through email, and
Mhm.
that was fine for that. But I did end up mailing all that stuff, college degree, blah blah, the forms, and then in like I think December or so, sometime in December, then I ended up getting the COE form from back from Japan from the visa office or whatever. And then for that, you have to send it to your region's consulate office. Like if you can walk over to there, that's great. South Carolina, our region's
Yeah.
covered by Georgia, so I mailed mine
Okay.
basically.
So you don't have to go down to Georgia.
No, I could drive 4 hours to Atlanta again, like I did for the JLPT, but I wasn't doing that again. I didn't enjoy that. So I mailed it. Only thing I forgot, gotta make sure I like reread the instructions so many times, and I still missed that you need to include a way for them to send it back to you. So like a label or whatever, a shipping label.
Okay.
So make sure you include like a shipping label and like an extra little envelope or whatever to send it back. Because I was at, oh yeah, I was like, where was I? I drove my friend because she was getting some eye surgery done,
Mm.
like LASIK stuff. They had to fix something. Um, so I get a call. They're like, oh yeah, so we got your passport and your COE, and we did your visa stuff. It's all done, but we don't have a way to send it back because you didn't include a shipping label. So it's like, oh my god. Luckily, I was able to make the shipping label on my phone with like USPS, I think, and it was like only a couple bucks. I don't remember it being that expensive. I made it, and I was able to make like a PDF copy of it on my phone and send it to them that day. So then I got my passport with my visa and all my stuff. So I guess just make sure you really are reading the instructions and like double check and triple check and then like check another time and maybe check one more time. Because even though I checked so many times, I still like missed a point. But I guess the biggest thing is just making sure you're just quick and on top of things with getting your paperwork in. Because like the
Mhm.
sooner you get it in, the sooner it gets done. Because really the process can take like it could take a month at the quickest, or it could be like 2 to 3 months.
Mhm.
So mine got done pretty quickly. So just because like the next day, as soon as like, okay, here's the stuff you need to send. Okay, and I sent it, so it should be to you, real soon.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I remember
that's
picking up
my
my
advice.
visa when we first went over. I got to go on my 18th birthday to pick
Woo!
it up, because it was available around that time. So that was very exciting.
Nice.
Going to the the consulates
Mm-hmm.
and picking it up and having like this really fancy page in your passport, and it
Yeah,
feels so official and like
it
it's
feels good, man.
glossy. Yeah. Um, have there been things that are easier or harder, like about kind of the moving over process now that you're 27 instead of 18?
Well, one, I feel like I know what to expect.
Mm,
So in
that's a
that
good help.
aspect makes it easier, especially with like, I mean, again, with the apartment stuff, like that was honestly kind of easy. It was more so just going to be like, hey, so do you guys rent to foreigners? Is that okay? That was like the first thing I would ask just in case.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but then just talking with the people and stuff, most of them were really like cool. Like I kind of wish I had stayed in Honjo, but it's so far to ride the train, like 20 minutes, and then get to here, and then go like a 30-minute walk to where my middle school is at. So it's like
Mhm.
I'd rather just be like a 15-minute walk away at this point. But the real estate people that were in that city were so nice, and it was so funny because one of the dudes, like one of the upper managers, they're like, he came into the room and was like, "Hey, so can I just like talk to you because I never had the like I can't really speak English, and I don't meet other like Americans specifically that can speak Japanese enough that we can have like a conversation
Mhm.
about other things." So he's like, what kind of famous Japanese people do Americans know? And da, 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 da. Like it was stuff like that. And he's like, and you know this, and you know this. It was really cute because he just like, I just kind of wanted to talk to you, not about house stuff, just anything.
Yeah, I
So,
feel like that's one of the biggest challenges to actually practicing your Japanese in Tokyo specifically, is
mm-hmm,
because so many people there are like internationally minded, and they are probably taking eikaiwa lessons and practicing their English, and so like they're more interested in practicing their English with you than they
mm-hmm,
are helping you practice their Japanese. So like I feel like in my own personal experience, I didn't have that many times where I have people like genuinely wanted to just talk to me. It was
mm-hmm.
like they were just like throwing English
English
phrases,
time.
like "Where are you from?"
Yeah,
like at you, that sort of thing.
yeah.
Um,
I
or
also had like again, like with the taxi driver, I decided before what I was gonna do when I first got here. I flew into Tokyo, and then I was gonna take a taxi to like Shinagawa Station, and
mhm,
then from there ride the train like the next hour and a half to get up here in Saitama where the office is at. And then as I'm riding the taxi and I'm talking with the taxi driver about all sorts of stuff, um, he looked up like how long the drive would take, which it was the same amount of time as the train, like an
uh-huh.
hour and a half or something like that, if we just drove in the taxi. Of course, it cost like $300.
Courtney, every single travel guide says watch out for the taxi drivers from the airport because they're gonna try to
Well, he
get
was from
every
the
dollar.
hotel,
Okay.
but at the time, but the thing is, I had all these heavy bags, and it's just like they were just cumbersome to like move around and
That's
lift
true.
and this, and I would have had to transfer like 3 times. And
Yeah.
I kept thinking about it. It's like, okay, so I mean, technically, I have the extra money like set aside. Like I've set aside extra money. It's within my budget to actually pay $300 to ride in this taxi, um, to go like straight to the station. I need like I went to basically only had to ride the train for 30 minutes. I think that was it. And then
That's
had a
not bad.
5 minute walk. So because I did this, and it was like I was just thinking to myself, the 5 minute walk with all my stuff was awful. I hated it. So now imagine doing that for like all day from train to train to train. I was like, it was much better just to hang out in the taxi and
Yeah.
just talk with this guy. Like, I learned he was from Niigata. He had only recently come to Tokyo because he was debating if he wanted to be a taxi driver or a truck driver. He ended up picking the taxi one because I think that's who responded quickest back to him.
Mm-hmm.
He has an older sister and an older brother. He has 2 cats, but they're still back in Niigata. And he's like 55. It's not I learned a lot of stuff about him. Like we just talked the entire time. He thought that the Olympics were going to get postponed. At the time, they weren't postponed then, but
Yes.
he's like, yeah, I think they're going to postpone it. So he was right. So if we had bet, he would have won. Stuff like that. So I feel like just having that one-on-one too, like I don't know. I thought, even though I know it was expensive and maybe it was a little bit bougie to spend that much money to ride it on the taxi for my very first like real taxi ride, I guess by myself. Um, I don't know. I feel like it was worth the money for
Yeah.
that time and experience, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's what we did when my mom and I like were going because we got to Tokyo a little bit early because we want to just kind of settle and maybe sightsee a bit before moving into the dorms and having to deal with all the school stuff.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I think yeah, like we ended up taking a taxi from our hotel to the dorm because it was just like
It's just easier.
yeah, we could walk because we stayed by school, so it was what
Mm-hmm.
like a 25-minute walk to the station,
Mm-hmm.
then 2 trains, and
Mm.
then having to it would have been kind of a different thing. Um, that's kind of nice though that like you meet a friend.
Oh yeah, because the thing is like sit in silence for like an hour and a half. That's not going to happen. So I mean, we were both asking questions back and forth and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I mean, but also I guess again, kind of a talkative person.
you
So
are.
so it also helps, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like that was a regular thing on our trip together was like people would stop you and you would just chat and I would slowly
Yes.
try to get smaller and smaller like
Yes.
you don't see
Yeah.
me, stop talking. It's like I went to New York. I took myself to New York City a couple years ago and I took like Lyft from the airport to Manhattan
hmm
because it turns out the train was super easy, but it was just like coming off of like a 5-hour flight. I was
You're
really
just all like,
tired.
yeah.
Yeah. And I got there and like the Lyft driver talked the entire time and was like
Nice.
pestering me with questions and like trying to get me to like watch his like online Christian TV network. And then he
Oh.
started taking business calls. And it was very like
Okay.
I literally spent the whole time like in the back seat.
Just like,
Like my phone in front was kind of nauseous and had a headache from the flight because this was like, dude, I just got off a plane. I
say,
don't want to
please
talk.
let me
I,
rest.
I threw out my back 2 days ago.
Oh.
um, but yeah, I think that's kind of the thing that gives me the biggest pause is like just the number of people and strangers you have to talk to kind of
Yeah,
get through that process.
that's true. And even then, it's like, I think remembering about like, okay, yes, you do get looked at or stares.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I see someone looking at me, I make eye contact and then I hold the eye contact. So then it's like, okay, am I gonna like give up first, or is he gonna give up first? Like I just kind of like maintain it as we kind of walk by each other. So you're looking at
Mhm.
me, I guess I'll just look back at you. But
Yeah.
then at the same time, where it's like, I don't know, it was kind of cute the other day or this past Wednesday. I'm walking home from the middle school, and there was just like a random group of like elementary age, like school kids. They probably had already finished their half of school since everything's
Yeah.
kind of in parts, right? And they're like, "Hi, hello," and I was just kind of thrown off because I didn't think they were gonna like say anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
But they did have their outgoing leader who was on a skateboard the whole time. He's like, "Hey," so I was like, "Hello, how are you?" "I'm fine, thanks." "And you?" It's like, "I'm good." "Okay, bye." Bye. Like they were so happy, but it's like there's also little things like that that kind of, I don't know, it makes me happy. Of course, not like you don't have in the States where people don't be like, more people I think will just randomly talk to you and say, "Hey, hello, how are you?" But I don't know. It's different. It was the same but different. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool. Like I think kind of going back to like the original question too. It's like you not only like you have your own experience, like you have your 4 years of experience having lived there before, but then you also have like your own experience just being an adult on your own. Because
Yeah.
for both of us, I mean, we were kind of the some of the youngest people in our, like the way that our university works doesn't really think of things of like graduation term. Like you don't say I'm like class of 2013.
Right.
You go like, well, I was part of the entry group of like fall 2010.
Mm-hmm.
That says more about, because everyone's coming in for a thing, so like that says more about your social group than it does like when you're actually finishing, because
Yeah.
you finished a semester or two before I did.
Yeah, early, yeah.
And then we had friends who had already done a couple years of college and transferred, and so they got done like a year or two before we did. Like there's some kept, messed up their credits, so they still had to keep going when we were done. So yeah, so we were one of the youngest, like coming right out of high school.
Oh yeah, I think I still hadn't even turned 18 yet, or had like just turned 18.
Yeah, so
by the time I got there.
So you turned 18 in June.
Yeah.
I had turned 18 in July, and then we both moved in like middle of August.
Yeah.
Of that same year. So we were like newly 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd never like lived on our own before. So like not only were we trying, like having to learn how to be independent in our school, like only, for people watching, our school only gave us
the one semester, really.
Housing. Yeah. And that semester was like you didn't even have the full semester because you needed to find a place to live by December. So I think I moved out in October. I think you were a little bit behind that.
Oh, that's because the people I was going to live with, like as we were looking for places, they're like, "Well, I want to live." I think I talked about it before, but it's like, "Oh, I want to live this weird far out place," and it's like, it's not cost effective to live all the way out here and do this. And I just realized where it's like, okay, their way of thinking, handling money, is not going to be good for me. So I'm going by myself. So that's kind of why I was a little bit behind. But
yeah, so, and I know that I think there were some people who left it as early as like September, even.
Yeah, as soon as they could. Yeah.
A month, they tried to get out. So it's like you had to pay for like the 3 months or whatever of 3 or 4 months of dorms, but you didn't actually have to stay in the dorms.
Yeah.
Like once you got there, it was your room if you wanted to be there, but if you found somewhere else to be, you were fine. Go ahead.
You're good to go. Yeah.
Big thing is like knowing just how to take care of yourself.
Yeah, that really helps. Where it's like, I know how to pay bills, and I mean, you have people here, which again, I guess, like, there's some stories where, or at least with like the company stuff, where they gave examples. There was like, "Oh yeah, I kept getting these like bill things, or these paper." No, like, "Oh, they called the company because their electric had been cut off," or something. Like, "Hey, my lights aren't coming on." It's like, "Oh, did you pay your bill?" I don't know. And then like eventually where it was like, "Hey, why this money was taken out of my bank account? What's it for?" "Your electric bill." "What do you mean? You have to pay your bill." Did it not send papers?" "Oh, I don't know. I couldn't read it, so I just threw it away." I don't know. I feel like there's some level of like, you have like self-responsibility and stuff that you have to have for yourself. And then on top of being in a foreign country where it's like, okay, maybe like double check what the things in the other language is saying, because they might be important. You never know.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of mail you can't read. Throwing it away should not be your default. Actually, I myself had sort of a similar thing where I moved into my place. It was like the last place I lived when I lived on my own. And they had taken like the form that you filled out for the electricity. they had gently placed it in one of the cupboards above the
Oh.
sink, like with some other stuff. But they didn't mention like, oh hey, because everything else it was like I was able to transfer internet over, and I think water started automatically, like
Mm-hmm.
was done differently. Like I filled out the form when I like picked up my keys or something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, but it was involved like gas and water. But electricity had just sort of been like the form had just sort of been tucked away in the corner, and I saw that it was TEPCO, but I didn't like it didn't register that that's what that was, and I
Mm-hmm.
like so like I moved in like September or October, and then went back home for Christmas and came back and my power was out.
Oh no.
And I remember getting like really angry at our friend because I had like given money to our friend who lived not too far to actually
Uh-huh.
come down like once a week and check my mail and
Yeah.
like see if there were bills, and if there were bills, pay it on my behalf, because it didn't occur to me that I could just call and be like, hey, I'm not going to be here for a month. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't know you could do that. Again, one of those things about when you move to a foreign country when you're 18 and having to like learn it all at once.
Oh yeah.
And I got really mad at him because I came back and all the mail, like he hadn't come once to pick up any of the mail. Turns out the
Really?
electricity was not his fault, but I think I sent him a really angry text, like on my way back from the airport, like on the Skyliner. I was like sitting
Uh-huh.
like an hour, I'm like sitting there just going like, I cannot believe you.
How could
You
you do this to me? I mean,
promised?
but then yeah. But
I'm
not to
so
even at
disappointed.
least go to get your mail at least once.
Yeah, and he didn't even do like there was nothing. Like I walked in and like the mail chute in the door was just packed and there was nothing on the counter. And I was like, well, okay. I drew a map. I gave him I walked him down the path. I think
Huh.
I gave him. That's cool. Thank
It's a
you.
cool thing. So I know who not to ask next time. Whoops.
Yes. And then I think actually after that, then I figured out like, oh, I could just call. Um but actually I don't think I ever went back after because we stayed for Christmas the following year.
Oh
Um
yeah.
What I know we kind of talked about this in the podcast a little bit, like with our own experience going back and just
Mm-hmm.
seeing how things have changed. Like has there been anything that struck you as like a huge difference between like
I mean,
2020 Japan and 2014 Japan?
yeah. Well, like we kind of mentioned it before, or noticed it before when just from our trip is like
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot more like foreigners around, at least like in the Tokyo area. You do see a lot more foreigners just like working in the stores and just around. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's kind of interesting. But then on top of that, again, there's just more English around in Tokyo, like with the train announcements. I never heard an announcement before that said like please don't sit on the floor. Like they never said that before. Or like the new little square things that have the numbers, or
Mm-hmm.
it's like T20 or something.
Oh, that
Like
that confused me so much. Like, yeah,
that's new, but it's been
yeah,
around for a few years, I guess. After we left, I guess it came up because my friend, I was like, "What are these square things?" Like, "Oh no, those have been around for a while. What are you talking about?" I was like, "I know those weren't around when we left."
yeah. So they've
So
numbered all the stations. So now when you're at a station, like they say like Tokyo, but they also have like in the square like the train line and the number of the stop,
yeah,
which
makes it easier in a way, I guess, if you can't read like the names, even though the names are in
yeah,
English too. But you're like, okay, T20, this is T20, so it's just less like I guess less chance for like error if you
yeah.
confuse like what is it that people mess up like Asakusa and Asakusa or something like
Uh,
that.
Akasaka and Asakusa, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is.
But that makes me mad because I spent so much time
Learning
memorizing
it.
train
Yeah.
lines. Like I used to be able, like, the Kane Toksen or the Nanboksen, like I used to be able to list everything, single station on that line in order. And now that sort of
Impressive.
knowledge is obsolete.
I'm sorry.
um,
Times are changing.
yeah, yeah, that did strike me a lot when we were there. Was like I feel like every time we went to a convenience store or like a chain restaurant, there was like
Mm-hmm.
at least one, like not white person, but like Southeast Asian like
Yeah.
person who was working there. It was really
Yeah.
interesting because I mean it could have been like the neighborhood that we were in because I guess we were in Meguro and that's pretty international.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been different. Like, I mean, have you noticed lots of foreigners in Kumagaya?
Mm, well, actually, in comparison, like to Meguro, there might not be as many. Like I'll see a few, like one or two
Mm-hmm.
here or there as I'm walking out and about. Um, but like a few,
Yeah.
couple.
I guess
So
that's true. That I mean that would make it different then, because like yeah, it felt like when if you're around where our school was or like the embassies are, like if you're around Roppongi or Azabu or Shinagawa, like you're gonna see foreigners, and if you're taking the Yamanote San, you're gonna see foreigners. Go to Harajuku or Shibuya, you're gonna see foreigners. Um,
right.
but like like even though my apartment building was owned by Tokyo Rent, which is like a rental agency
Mm-hmm.
that like specifically caters to foreigners, like I knew that probably like half the people who lived in my
Mm-hmm.
building were foreigners. It still like shocked me whenever I like passed somebody at the grocery store or the convenience
Yeah.
store. Like our paths never crossed. So I guess the fact that you're like seeing people
Right.
means that there are probably a lot more.
Yeah, a lot more often. So I probably there are quite a few that live around in the neighborhood and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. Because it's like, oh, this lady I see in the convenience store. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now at the grocery store. Now just walking around. So, but I don't know about like in my neighborhood specifically. Um, I don't really see that many. It's just once I get closer to like the station
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Mostly it's all the cats that I notice that are around my neighborhood for some reason. There's a lot.
My building in Saitama, like I was closer to Tokyo. Like it's probably different in Kumagaya because
Hmm.
you're further out. So people
Yeah.
like working for international companies and stuff aren't really gonna have the reason to live out there. I know that there was a Filipino lady who was living on my floor, and she actually like stopped to speak to me like once or twice.
Oh.
Um, just sort of like, hey, I'm also a foreigner. But
Oh.
I know when I was getting my apartment, I used like a translation service who kind of helped me
Hmm.
with it. Um, and so he like we're like we had signed off on the papers and stuff, and he was like, oh, like I actually just helped like another like kind of I think he was Australian, like an Australian guy or a British guy,
Hmm.
like find an apartment in your building. And he was like, you guys are both foreigners, do you want me to give him your phone number?
Oh my god.
He's like, are you single, do you want to like go on a date with this guy? And I was like, no, I very much do not. Number one, I'm 20. Number two, I don't want who lives in your apartment complex. um and three, I'm pretty sure this is against some sort of rule. Like, I think
But
this
yeah,
is
something. He's
inappropriate.
like, actually, I'm trying to branch out into like an international dating service. So I want you kind of be like my first like customers.
Yeah, I remember like we're like walking through Shinjuku back from like the rental agency, and I was like, how do I politely ask him to delete my phone number once we're done here?
Oh my god.
I'm not sure how that works. Um, Next question. This one's long. I wrote these at like 2 o'clock in the morning one night, just like typing a bunch of things. Let's see. So you told me when we decided to leave that you didn't feel that attached to the Tokyo area. I think I'm just calling you out at this point. So you didn't
Okay.
feel that attached to the Tokyo area, and you wanted to live somewhere more rural. I remember you saying that, like when we moved back,
Yeah.
I remember because I was very torn up. I was like, I love Tokyo so much, but
Hmm.
I'm having such a hard time staying here. Um, and then you were like, who cares about Tokyo? Like, I'll go back to Alaska. I don't care where I end up. I don't even like the big
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Like, has that changed? Or like does like Kumagaya like satisfy that kind of in between?
I think so far it's been satisfying that in between because it's not like it's in my head when I think of rural, I think of like my grandparents' house, middle of nowhere, Texas. Most people don't know this town unless they live into the other middle of nowhere town that's next to it. Your neighbor is maybe 20 minutes away or 30 minutes away by car. The roads aren't even paved, they're dirt roads. It's farmland, it's like things like that. That's what I think of as rural. So I get here and people say, oh, well, it's rural out here. It's like,
Inaka.
exactly. It's like there's three shopping malls here. What are you talking about? Like there's three shopping malls. There's all these restaurants. There's a McDonald's that's right there. Like there's all these stores. You go one station over, and there's like this really cool bathhouse place. I mean, if you have a car, it's easy to get around to other things. You have all these people built. There's buildings and stuff all around you. I mean, sure, if you go maybe 20, 30 minutes one direction, Then you start getting more into like farmland areas, so it gets a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more spread out. But still, just in my mind, it's not rural. So it's just like, okay, sure, you don't have as many stores or interest like things like that compared to Tokyo. Yes, there are more stores and more interesting things or events, but from here, okay, you ride. Sure, it's kind of stinks that you have to ride the train for like an hour, but at the same time, it's only an hour and you're not even driving. So, and if I really wanted to splurge, I could spend money on the Shinkansen. Sure, it's like $30, but I could get to like the Tokyo area in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess I have a lot of options. So if I want to go to more naturey things and see that, 30 minutes one way can do that. And if I want to go into the city, an hour or 30 minutes can get me into the city for stores. And like shipping for things, it comes pretty quickly here, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can set like a date and the time. Does it stink that they, you know, don't just put it in front of your door and then you just get it and you have to get it redelivered? A little bit. It does get a little bit annoying to have to
Yeah.
sign for like every single package. But if you do the timing right and when you're home, then it's usually not too bad. And then I started getting attached to my delivery people. So it's like, oh, where's my delivery? What is it? Kuroneko guy. I
Mm-hmm.
like having the order come around 4 o'clock because it always seems like he works in the afternoon. It's like, yay. So
Yeah, I feel like the fast. Okay, so when we lived in the dorms, I remember I ordered a CD or a DVD, I think from
mm-hmm,
HMV,
mm-hmm,
like the music store. It was there the next morning. Like I ordered it at like 9 p.m. that night, and when I
mm-hmm.
woke up the next morning, it was outside my door.
Yeah.
It
Like it's just the quick turnaround for
like the
things.
distribution was like down the street or
Yeah.
something. They just walked it over. Yeah, that's how I felt with my post office lady who would deliver like the care packages that my parents sent from the States. It was always
Uh-huh.
the same woman, and she always came like right as I was getting home from school or work. So I'd have to like
Mm-hmm.
I'd see her from down the hall outside my door, and I'd have to run like I'm
Like,
here.
wait.
And my parents like would get those flat rate packages that like the weight didn't matter as long as you could fit it in the box. So they would
Yeah. Cram it in there.
Marie Kondo should take some pointers from my mother
Ooh.
and how she packed those boxes. They were heavy.
Nice.
As I always felt so bad for like this old, not old lady, but like this woman like in her 50s who was like staying there holding my really, really heavy box. And I'm like, thank
Oh.
you for waiting. She's like,
Oh.
I saw you come in from the elevator.
Oh.
But yeah, I do kind of miss that too. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you had a relationship with your like delivery people
Yeah.
and also pizza delivery.
Yes.
Like
At least with although within the states, at least with the USPS, there was one lady who I would actually like sometimes get the chance to talk to. So I guess for some places in the U.S., well, specifically the USPS, maybe it was just my family, but we kind of made friends with like our delivery guy. And he would like hang out and like on our driveway, and we'd all talk and stuff like that. So, but
I'm sorry that the cat is really distracting me. What's
oh,
the
I'm
cat?
sorry. It's a
What's
pillow.
Oh, it's a pillow. I just keep saying it. I'm like, is that attached to your shirt? Is
No,
it?
I was just holding it. I'm sorry. Is it?
No, that's fine. You're
Okay.
allowed to hold it. You're
Okay,
allowed to hold
cool.
it. I thought maybe it was related to that. What's that brand that you bought like a crap ton of?
Oh, the Nya.
Yeah.
That's like his name is just Nya.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's actually kind of popular because at the office, one of the ladies like, "Oh my gosh, you have one of those shirts. I love that brand." So, it's okay,
It
cool.
was
I like it too.
when we went back to Tokyo. I think we passed one store that had that brand and you were like, oh,
Yes.
that's really cute. And then we were at a mall and we went to the brand store. And so everything was it. You were just like, I don't even know where to start.
Get this and get this and get this. I mean, I got a lot of points on my point card, and I want to use them before they expire. So I'm glad I made
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Use them. And that's where I waited outside because
Yes.
I was like, there's literally nothing here that, I can buy that would fit me. And then I got a numpad.
Yes. I'm actually still friends with her. Like we're like
So
I
take
still
me
talk
to the
with each
church.
other.
What?
Oh, yeah, I'm still friends with her. We still talk.
Really?
Yeah, she's
We're friends on Instagram, but she never like we friended each other on Instagram, but she never messaged me to chat. I think she realized like, oh, you're just being polite.
No, like we talk pretty frequently, even though I mean, I guess she's kind of the I don't know how to explain it. Like, yes, she's very, I guess, religious, which is fine. So that's kind of interesting though to see like over here and see kind of I guess a different for a different religion, like seeing someone being very into it.
Yeah.
But she's kind of cool, like that she teaches hip hop dancing, and I don't know. It's just I just like oh she has all these. Well, I mean, people are multifaceted, so it's just she's kind of cool, and I like her. So we're still friends and we still talk.
Has she invited you to hang out again now that you're back?
Actually, yeah, she came back to here. She came. She it was just easier for her to come to my place, so she's hung out over at my house for like a couple times.
Oh,
She's actually gonna come over today too. So
really?
yeah,
Who knew? Who knew that that random girl who approached me in
yes,
the mall to talk about how pretty our respective hair was,
yes,
um, and talk about Pokemon Go, uh,
yes.
would then become a lifelong friend of
I'm
yours.
very excited because the cake shop by my house is open again. So she's like, "Oh, I'll buy cake and we can eat cake at your house."
That's so cute. Tell her I say hello. I'm
Okay, I
still a little
will.
uncomfortable.
She did ask about you. It's like, "Is Taylor
Oh,
doing good?" It's like, "Yeah, she is."
yeah. Tell her I say hi.
Because she was like,
Um,
"Oh, was Taylor shy?" I was like, "Yeah, she's kind of shy."
how do you say social anxiety in
I
Japanese?
haven't actually learned that word yet, but maybe I'll look into it.
um, and you'd probably have to go into like a whole other discussion. Um, someone did ask, Vicky asked in the comments,
Hmm.
she's wondered how foreigners have changed, if there was one, since there are more foreigners in Tokyo since we were in college. Have you
Wait, how
noticed
many cut out at the beginning? Like how the
the,
foreigners have changed?
how the attitudes towards
Oh, towards
foreigners?
foreigners.
Yeah,
Mm, I mean,
if you've noticed anything.
I haven't really noticed too much of a difference. I mean, I do feel like I've been very lucky in my experiences in that everyone's like treated me very well and very kindly. But it does help to be like a skinny, pretty girl. I don't know if that's like kind of like a humble brag or whatever you want to call it, but I do feel like I do have some advantages that some people might not in ways. So
Well, a
I,
lot of people think you're half too.
yeah, I'll get that too. So I mean, that also might help because they're like they aren't quite sure. Like, okay, what box do I put her into? I don't know
Yeah.
yet. So I guess that kind of ambiguity kind of gives me a different viewpoint.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm just trying to think of like for my other friends' experiences and stuff like that. I can't think of anything
I
that
feel like
that stands out.
I feel like it's one of those countries though where like especially like in the Tokyo area where
Mhm.
they're used to you more or less.
Oh yeah,
So like kind of what you deal with is like very light microaggressions,
yeah.
like people staring, or I know my roommate who's Norwegian used to get really mad because everyone would assume she was American. I remember being out with her once and this guy came up and was like trying to use his English and he's like, "Are you American? You're what part of America are you from?" And she was like, "Norway." He's like, "Where in America is that?" She was like, "Europe."
It's awesome. Actually, my sister, when she came to visit one time, it was like afterwards, it seemed like maybe it was kind of scary, but me and her were at my 7-Eleven where I made all my friends. And but it was in the evening, so the people that I usually like hang out and talk to weren't there. But we got whatever, probably milk tea and like melon bread. Anyway, so we're leaving, and there had been like two guys that were in the convenience store too, but I didn't really pay much attention. So we're waiting at the crosswalk before, like in front of the apartment or before you get to the apartment. And those same two dudes like were like, "Hey, hey," and start talking to us, but they spoke in Japanese. But basically, they didn't think we were American. They thought I was from Brazil and that my sister was from France. But that was also when I had my very, very like deep tan.
Yes.
So it might
Summer
make a
Courtney.
difference. Yes, summer Courtney version. So, but no, I never. I mean, yeah, I mostly people ask if I'm from South America, not usually America, North America. So,
Yeah. You know, everyone just knew that I was American. They were like, "You are a tall blonde person, blonde white lady. You are
Gotta
from
be
America.
America.
Yeah. I do remember once, like, I worked with a guy who's from LA, and
Hmm.
like the woman who ran our location was always like, I can't believe you're both from the same like state. Like, she couldn't comprehend that we were both
Really?
Californian. It's like
Hmm.
the region doesn't dictate your personality that much, but also he's
No,
from LA, and LA is the worst. I'm from San Francisco. We're like
it's different.
we're fancy up here. Um
I do think, like, going back to like the attitudes for foreigners, or I don't know if it's like, if I can explain it correctly, like you were talking about with like the little microaggressions and things
mhm.
like that. I do feel like for some people who might complain more, you hear them complain more, it might be because it's the first time that they get to experience those microaggressions. And so like in my case, it's like, okay, that's, I'm used to it. Okay, people, oh, you're so good at using chopsticks. Why are you getting, but when my, well, I don't know, I feel like people get a little bit butthurt about it. And yes, it's annoying to be like told, oh, you're so good at using chopsticks when they're like a very common tool. Um, but it's just, I don't know. I guess I just learned how to kind of roll with it because it's like, oh, who taught you how to use it? My dad. Is your dad Japanese? No.
I always felt really bad though when they would say like, "Oh, you know how to use chopsticks? Is Japanese food that popular in America?" And be
Yeah.
like, I mean, I think most people learn from eating Chinese food. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, another one I get is my long legs, where they're like, "Oh my gosh, your legs are so long. Oh my gosh, your legs are so long," um, which again, I don't let it. I don't. It doesn't really bother me too much because I do have really long
you
legs,
do,
like freakishly long legs.
yeah.
So yeah, people are gonna comment on them, and it's gonna be normal. But it also is a way. I guess that's a way they're trying to like connect to you too, because like make observation. Wow, you have this feature. Yes, I do. Do you want to compare how long our legs are? Because I bet your legs look real short next to mine. And I did that with one of the teachers, and then it worked. And then like with the students, because there was like 3 students watching, they busted out laughing. And then I went over to them. They're like, ah, they're like, no, not us, not us. But it was just like these little weird things that I guess people try to do to try to connect with you or try to make some kind of connection, even if it could sometimes can be annoying.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't know if I'm making sense with what I'm saying, but I guess
But
I don't know. I guess I've learned how to kind of put a positive spin on kind of that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
I never felt like it bothered me as much as it bothered some of our friends. Like, I had
Yeah,
friends who it really bugged them.
yeah.
That fact that people like would stare at them on the train or like
Mm-hmm.
refuse to sit next to them, and I think I just kind of rolled with it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because same thing, it's like I'm very tall. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very tall, and so I've had people, like, I'm used to like people going to stare at me,
Yeah.
or make comments about like my appearance. I remember
Mm-hmm.
I was at a Walgreens once when I was in high school, and this dad came out of nowhere, and he just said, my daughters are tall like you are, and I just want to say nobody looks when a short woman walks into the room, but everyone
Oh,
looks when a tall girl does. Like, yeah, I understand, but he like meant as a compliment. He was like show stopping or something. I don't know. Like, so I've gotten very used to that. Like when at work, it's actually at work, I get more questions about where I'm from than I ever did when
oh,
I was
really?
in Japan. They're
Oh,
like,
interesting.
where are you from? I'm like, here, California. They're like, well, it's like the classic, like, where are you from? No, where's your family from? And I go,
Where are you from, though?
like Norway, Scotland, Germany. Like, I knew
They'd be
it.
like,
It's
I knew
like,
it.
I think it's someone said like, yeah, you look like a good sturdy Scandinavian girl to me. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay.
Thanks.
Okay. They'll ask if I'm like standing on a box when I was at the registers and stuff. So uh yeah, it's different. Someone also asked, are there any misconceptions people have in Japan about Americans? I think that's
um,
kind of a tricky one.
that we all eat hamburgers, but
Yeah. I think the stereotype is that we all eat hamburgers and we love Coke, like Coca-Cola and
I mean
Snickers.
that's true.
Because I
The
remember
Coca-Cola.
I bought a Coke and a Snickers at like the 100 yen Lawson once, and I put it down, and the guy like looked down at what I was buying, and he looked up at me, and he burst out laughing. Because
Oh no.
it was like the stereotype.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I feel
But
like I feel like people just the stereotype is that Americans are all like super outgoing and loud.
Yeah. But then on the flip side, it's like, okay, so the
Because that
American,
kind of goes.
well,
Go ahead.
I would say the Americans, that go to the schools or middle schools and stuff, like you kind of have to be outgoing
Yeah.
to like interacting with the students. So that's also going to build like their idea of what Americans are like from like a younger age.
Yeah,
So,
I remember reading somewhere that like Japanese people think that like Americans smile a lot, and
but
that is
I think
true. But it could
Americans do
also,
smile a lot though.
but I think it also is just like if you're meeting an American in Japan, they might be nervous, and so they're like smiling to compensate for their nervousness or something. Yeah, I mean that kind of like tied into like what my old boss said, like comparing me to the guy from LA, because she was like you're both from the same place, but he's really loud and he's really outgoing, and he was like this guy in his 50s, he still skateboarded to work, and like
Oh, so cool.
and she's like, but you're very quiet and you're very like soft spoken and gentle, and
So people can be different. Wow.
she also said I was smart. She was like, I can't
Oh,
believe that
yay.
you're from the same place. You're so smart.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was like, ooh, that's the closest thing to an insult I've ever heard you say.
Wow. Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, tell me about your neighborhood. I want to hear about your neighborhood.
So in my neighborhood, besides the cats, because I mentioned that already, where they fight, it's like this one specific house, and I think it's probably just this lady who feeds all the feral cats. But a lot of the students from my middle school, like they all like live around here. So right now there's not as many of them, like they don't all go to school at the same time. It's in groups. So it's only like one or two of them I might see walking. But once it gets back to like everybody at the same time, like it's going to be, and once and then everyone will actually know who I am. So it's like walking around, I'll be like, oh, all the students are going to be all around me. So I don't know, they're going to figure out where I live real quick. But there's one neighbor, like from my backyard area, there's like a parking space. So it's nice because there's no building blocking the sunlight. So I get lots of nice sunlight.
Nice.
But the one neighbor kind of next to that, they have a bunch of like rose bushes and flowers. So it's like, that's really pretty. And I finally timed it right where I got to like say good morning to the lady. So it's like, I want to become friends with my neighbors. So, and there's actually quite a few kids that are in the neighborhood too. So that's kind of nice. And it's quiet. Like there's not a whole lot of like cars going by. It's also a really narrow street. So I'm surprised cars even fit down this road. But no, there's a little like creek river thing that's also you walk along, or you can walk along, so that's kind of nice. But it's just quiet with lots of houses and like a cake store.
So I miss the cake stores.
Yeah, it's really cute. So I'm very very happy with where I'm at, because it's like it's close enough to the station, it's not out of the way, but far enough away where it's not going to be like loud at night from people going out and drinking and stuff like that. So since house parties aren't as much of a thing, I suppose.
Oh yeah, people won't go over to each other's houses in quite the same way.
No.
You find other places to hang out. Kind of speaking of like running into your students though, I did like one station away from my work. Sometimes I would walk home, but I think every week, because my internet was terrible, and like at the time Japan had like 0 streaming services. Like orders now, like you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have like all these things.
So good.
You have it so nice. So I would go to Tsutaya and rent DVDs, and I think you could get like, I think it was like 3 or 4 DVDs.
It was a couple, I'm pretty sure.
For 1,000 yen for $10 for a week. And so I would go like on Fridays or whatever. I would drop off my old DVDs and I'd pick up new ones. And I ran into a lot of students there.
Nice.
Doing kind of the same thing. But I taught like a younger crowd. So like I remember once I was like browsing the DVDs, I looked up and one of my students was like down the aisle and she saw me. And we made eye contact and she went and like disappeared.
Oh, no.
And then she came back like 30 seconds later with her dad. She was like, look, she's real. She exists outside of the house.
Oh, that's funny. It's cute.
And then it was sort of like, konbanwa, like, hello. Like the parents would always be like, oh, you're renting a DVD. I'd be like, oh yeah. He's like, okay, well, have a nice day. But Yeah, I always wanted to like bump into the older kids and be able to say hi, but it never happens.
But it's gonna be interesting. I think it'll be fun though, because then like we can all walk to school together. At least I don't
Yeah.
know if they'll care that they can walk with me. Because like the other alt at my school, he's like, oh yeah, no, the kids at this school don't really seem to care too much about the alt, et cetera, et cetera. Because I mean, I feel like there's that whole, I don't know if it's a stereotype or what you want to call it, but like, oh, being a foreigner in the school, the kids, you're gonna be like a celebrity. All the kids are gonna want to talk to you. Blah 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 blah. But again, I might have an advantage versus him since I'm a lady
Yeah.
and he's a guy and he's a little bit like kind of bigger, kind of muscular. Um, so like the older kids, like the
And
third
also the stories
years,
that you sounds like he's a bit of a grump too.
he's a little bit grumpy, a little bit like socially awkward. But he
Okay,
even
that's
said that
nice.
he's kind of like a little bit socially awkward. So he's like, well, maybe like if you help me, maybe like Soleil can kind of get over it. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I think like like with saying hello, like they might be a little bit shy with saying hello back, but if you give a little wave, they'll
Just
wave
give a
back.
little wave.
They'll
Yeah.
wave because I was like, just wave. And he's like, oh, I don't know, it feels kind of girly. He's like, well, you can just go like this. You don't have to wave your hands, spirit fingers, or whatever you want to call it. If
Fellas,
that feels girly,
fellas, is it gay to wave?
it might be. But it's just like this. Hey, hello. It's like, come on, dude.
Is
But
it
he's
gay
actually
to
really
say
nice and
hello?
interesting. So, but
Ugh,
just a little awkward, I guess.
yeah. But I can see you being a big hit because you're outgoing and friendly and like
Try to be
funny.
anyway. So,
Yeah. Um, what are the things you're most eager to do now that you're back?
well, once the situation has settled, definitely just I think going to other prefectures and doing sightseeing and stuff
Yes.
like that. So it's very cute. My mom, she watches Journeys in Japan like every week on PBS. And she tells me about like where the places they went to, like as a play by play and where she wants to go. She's like, okay, so I want to go to Tochigi and I want to see the big Wisteria Park. And apparently they're famous for their miso, so I want to have that. Also, I want to go here because they're famous for yuzu and she loves citrus. So I want to try yuzu. Also, I want to go to Nara and I want to go here and I want to see the deer. I want to, like, she's like, you have to start writing down the list of all this stuff because it's now getting a lot and I don't know which is which or what you want to do or like things for me to see or
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I want to go to this place in the fall and see the leaves. And it's very cute. So I just want to start going and seeing those kind of places. Even if I go by myself, send
Mm-hmm.
pictures to my mom. Here's a real play by play. I went here.
I
So,
think that's one of the upsides to living like in that part of Saitama too, is because it
mm-hmm.
really is. It's so like it's close to Tochigi and it's close
To
like you
Gunma.
to Gunma, and you can get like kind of a straight shot. You can even go to like Shizuoka or kind of the areas outside. I mean, getting to Kanagawa is not quite as easy. You
No,
can have to
but
move around a bit, but and Chiba too. But like if you're going kind of more out into the countryside, you can definitely see some kind of cool, interesting things. I think that's kind of
yeah,
one of my big regrets is that I didn't like. We went to Nikko on a
yes.
trip, us and two of my two roommates. I was like two of our who were also our friends. We went on a trip, but uh, I think outside of that, I didn't really go much further outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, aside from going to Chigasaki for that festival, I don't think I ever went
Oh,
much more south than Kawasaki.
oh, okay.
Aside from like maybe one or two like day trips to like Enoshima or Yokohama.
Oh, or like the school trips or something.
Yeah, the school like I went on the school trip, but that was like kind of the only time I'd ever really like gone out
Mm-hmm.
the area.
Yeah.
Which I think was the whole reason why we went, even though it was filled with like study abroad students who didn't know how to take off their shoes before going inside the hotel room. Um,
Oh,
they like I remember like we came back and like we went with our friend Brendan and he like we met
no,
up
I
at,
remember I wasn't on that trip. It was
yeah
just you guys,
yeah just our guys us guys.
us guys.
Yeah, he and I went together, and so we split up to go to our like respective rooms to drop off our stuff, and then we like reconvened after, and he looked haunted, and he was like, they didn't take off their shoes before they walked on the tatami. they tracked mud all over the place. I've never seen that here before in Japan.
Oh.
How do they, it's like they've been here for months. How do they not know about that? But the whole reason was to easily get on our own. Because, I mean, it is kind of tricky. Like, once you leave the Tokyo area, like getting to
Yeah.
places, like you need a car or like
a bus.
or a bus, and just be kind of, it's not as easy as it is like in like to get to Disneyland. You just hop on a train.
Oh yeah.
And it drops you right off.
It's a little, I guess, a little more involved going other places.
It is, yeah. That's why I want to like go back, like even to visit, but I want to actually like, I come back and I'm like, I want to spend all my time in Tokyo because I miss it so much, and then I go, oh, I wish I could have traveled more. I'd like to go down to like Nagasaki or something, like go down to Kyushu.
I want to go to Hokkaido.
Maybe when they let Americans back in the country.
Hopefully sooner than later.
I can come visit.
Yeah.
And we can and you can keep me in check. So next time I'm like, I just want to stay in Tokyo and eat 7-Eleven food. You can be like,
psych, guess what?
You've done that enough in your lifetime. Let's go see something else. Still have 7-Elevens in Nagasaki, I hope. Did you know they don't have 7-Eleven in Shimane Prefecture?
No, I didn't. I just assumed they were everywhere.
There's not a single 7-Eleven in the entire prefecture.
Did they have some sort of like vendetta, like ban no 7-Elevens, no 7-Elevens?
I don't know, but I went there in like 2015 and they got their first Starbucks. That was a big deal. They were very excited about their first Starbucks. I'm
sure.
Yeah, but they didn't have 7-Eleven. They had Lawson and they had Family Mart.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm more of a fan of Lawson. I'm a Lawson purist, so.
But I went to Izumo, and a friend of mine who was studying in Osaka at the time. She did the MEXT, the Ministry of Education, has a scholarship every year where they give you, they pick through like worldwide. They pick a handful of students to go get like an advanced degree at a Japanese university. They cover all of your expenses, your tuition, your food, your apartment, everything. Like really, really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like really generous.
Yeah. Like competitive.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But she got that one because she's super smart. And so she went to Osaka University and she studied like stem cell research. She's actually back in the States. We're going to go to a protest together tomorrow.
Oh.
She's applying to med school, but she was living in Osaka at the time. And so she came out to visit when I was in Izumo, and she stayed with me kind of for the weekend. And I had her smuggle me some 7-Eleven food.
Nice.
I was like, can you like just stop by 7-Eleven? I'll pay you back. Can you get like, what's that they have like that long French bread that it's like cut in half and has like the cream on the inside. Like
yeah.
I was like, I want one of those. I want kind of the cheesy bites. She like came with a bunch of bread because I was like, I really want to eat this stuff, but they don't have it anywhere near where I'm gonna be. So can you just like smuggle lines and bring them to me? And she did. She's a good friend. And I'm gonna see her tomorrow. That's nice. My cat is attacking the corner of the bed. That's nice of her. Okay, she's awake. Another question from the viewers. How easy or hard is it to make friends there now that you've returned? Sounds like it's been pretty easy.
I mean, so again, I feel like I have some advantages some other people might not have, where it's like I'm pretty decently outgoing, so I'll talk to people, and in general, I feel like people want to talk to me. I guess they're like, oh, sure. I guess people think I'm interesting, so that also helps too. And then I speak enough Japanese, so with my Japanese friends, I can talk with them about whatever. Sure, there may be things I like don't know words for, this or that, but like we figure out what the word is and continue on. So I guess I just don't. I don't know. I guess I just try not to be too self-conscious about myself. I don't know if that's really very helpful, where it's like,
no, cannot relate.
It's just like, oh, what do they think about me? Like, I guess I just don't overthink it. Like, if you make a connection with the person, you make a connection. If you don't, you don't. And I guess I just kind of like I can't really give good advice for making friends where it's like, well, go to events, like go to things. Well, when there are events happening, but like go to things and just again smile and wave, and people will be willing to talk to you. And if they're and as long as they're not like a creepy weirdo, then you can make some I think pretty good friends. But again, I
Yes.
don't know if that's really that helpful of advice. So
You
because
just
I'll
you
just
just
talk
you
to the
just
pickle.
ruined Dale Carnegie's entire career.
Yeah,
How
I
to make
mean,
friends, and when people over whatever it's called. I should know what it's called. I sell books for a living.
I learned everything about like my taxi driver's life. So it's like just being able to talk to random people about whatever and like just ask questions about people. And hopefully, if they're a good listening partner, they'll ask questions about you too. So, and it keeps the conversation going.
And I feel like it also helps too that you know people there already.
Yeah,
You're having
well,
like
for sure.
Jubikas coming up to visit. I know our friend Tommy helped you, like he drove you around and helped you like hit up
Yeah.
recycle shops.
I mean, I was honestly surprised that we ended up like he works in Kumagaya. And now I live here. It's like, oh heck yeah! So it's just also some of that stuff. Again, it's like I'm not moving to somewhere totally new. It's a place where I have friends and people that I know, and so again, it's one of those advantages I guess that I have. So
I feel like that would also kind of help too. Like, I'm very sorry for what's happening behind me. She likes to run between her scratch post and the bed and like
ooh,
skitters across the floor as she does it. Um,
cute.
she is like 11 years old. I don't know why she has so much energy.
Oh, nice, active.
Or 12? God, she's old.
Really, I didn't realize she was that old.
Yeah, she's old. She's
Oh.
we got her the same way we got a Wii, and that's the only reason I can remember how old she is. It's because it was the summer after the Wii came out.
Nice.
um but I feel like that also kind of helps too, because it's like I feel like it's easier to make friends if you're not like what you said, like you're not worried about it. And so if you already have kind of friends in the area, it's not like life or death that you need
Mm-hmm.
to like make friends. And you also have me who will
Yeah,
talk at you.
exactly. So
Awesome.
it's like I have my friends and my family, even though I can talk to them online, even if they're not in person. It's like, oh, I don't feel. I guess I just don't feel lonely. So
Yes.
I don't know if that's actually a helpful answer or not, though. So
Apparently it is. People
it
have
really,
said I'm reading the feed. Courtney is not, because she doesn't love you.
I actually don't know how to open to read the feeds. So
um, how easy was it to learn the language compared to any others? Are there any interesting similarities between Japanese and English grammatically speaking? That's from my friend who teaches English, so that's
oh well, like I always feel like with the grammar wise, it's like it's flip flopped.
it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. So that's for learning either of the languages because they're total opposites of each other. Um, did it kind of cut out at the beginning? Did it? They also ask if there's any other similarities with Japanese and other languages.
Or how easy were your studies? I
Um,
I mean we've both been studying since we were in high school. Oh yes.
but I felt like there's like a certain wall that you end up hitting, like when you're first studying. Like I really felt like some of the grammar, but I mean, I kept working at it, kept going over it, kept going over it, building your vocabulary. And then there was just kind of one day, actually, it was while we were still in college, like there was one day where it just kind of like clicked,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense. Like it just clicked. Okay, I'll just, I guess, talk, just say things. Because before I was so worried about being like really like proper grammar, understand this and do that, like just really having the good understanding, being super correct in that way. And it's like I felt like that was learning.
Mm-hmm.
So I just was like, you know what? I'll just make the mistakes with the grammar and mess up and just say my thoughts, whatever my stream of consciousness coming out. And in that way, I guess I ended up getting more used to how the grammar works, or it started coming out more naturally without having to think how do I form this sentence, or like start just thinking in Japanese. But
Mm-hmm.
you just about making the mistakes with the grammar and with the language. As you make the mistakes, you get corrected, and it just, I don't know, it's just more, becomes more natural over time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is a helpful advice or not, but that's kind of what happened to me with learning the language. Sure, the writing system is difficult with kanji and stuff like that, but again, it's one of those, like, if you practice, you get it. And even like other Japanese people tell me, it's like, you don't really have to know how to write too much kanji, honestly. A lot of us can barely write it. It's like that kind of thing. Like, yeah, we don't have to learn it. You should learn it. You should know how to read it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's advantageous to be able to write it as well. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I don't know. Yeah, that's what I got.
I feel like because Japanese and English are so different, what I found helpful was to stop trying to think of things in English first.
Yes.
And just try to think about like in Japanese, because if you try to think like exactly what you want to try to say in English, it's never gonna like
it's not going to
feel right.
perfectly, yeah, it's never going to perfectly translate the other way.
I mean, there are a lot of things too, like that even 6 years after moving back, like that's like it's become so ingrained in the way that I think that like I have a hard time not using it. Like we were kind of talking because I think we saw like some video about the way that like Nihonglish, like bilingual people speak, and they kind of like use a mix. It's like there are things that I still use as shorthand in my head that I sometimes get frustrated that like at work I can't be like desho or no or those sort of things, because they kind of like even within 4 years have become such an easy way to express a sentiment that you really can't do in English. So I don't know. Sometimes I look back at like I remember taking AP Japanese my last year of high school. So it was my 4th year of taking Japanese in high school. And we had to talk. We had to do like an interview, kind of self-introduction to like the new, he was kind of like an ALT. She was like a Japanese one who was brought over. We had to do a self-introduction, and I struggled to even say like, hello, my name is Taylor. I'm 17 years old. Like, I like these things. And then after living there for like 3.5 years, I remember like having full conversations with people, like being able to negotiate like oversized garbage pickup on the phone. And like and I remember like when I was moving out of my apartment, they had the facilities guy to come check it out and like, you know, make a note of anything that like needed to be paid for out of my deposit. And he was just like, what's the difference between envelope and envelop? Like, how do you pronounce it? Like, what is the difference between the two words? And I was kind of clunky, but I was able to like kind of explain like, okay, well, one's a verb and one's a noun, and like being able to have these conversations that even just a couple years before, like I could barely say what my name was after 3 full years of taking Japanese. It's interesting, kind of like, because I don't think we were that immersed, because we went to an English school and most of our friends spoke English. And
at least at school. I mean, again, I work part-time at Costco, so I had kind of more immersion that way, and so I was able to improve. So I had that, and then even with our Japanese friends at school, they would invite me over to their houses. Like I would sleep over at their houses and like meet their whole family. So also had like that kind of experience that helped too.
Yeah, I didn't. I think so. I think that's a difference too with our experience, because I taught English. I like went to school in English and I worked in English, and ever like go to a Japanese friend's house. I think the only houses I ever went to were yours, and like to drop off something at a friend's house. Like I just never hung out at other people's houses. So I feel like, so we really weren't that immersed. It's very easy to get by on English in Tokyo, at least,
especially in Tokyo.
Like you go get your phone. Like if you go to the big SoftBank in Harajuku, they have English speaking staff. You go to like, I know when we opened our bank accounts with
there was some volunteer with the school, and they took us like as a group all there at once. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly.
So when I opened my bank account, the one by school had a like an American woman working there. Like she wasn't affiliated with the schools. She just happened to be an American woman who was working at one of the branches. She like mainly dealt with like overseas transfers, but she would step in and help you open an account if you needed an English
Oh,
speaker. I know eventually she stopped working there because I know I had to go for something, and I was like, oh, does she still work here? They're like, no, she left. Like she got transferred, she got promoted. She's like working at the corporate office now or something.
yeah.
But so this is kind of different, but I think you still pick up quite a bit just by
Oh,
living over
yeah.
there. But I used to joke that like I couldn't talk about politics and I couldn't really talk about culture or anything, but like all the Japanese I knew was like how to order things at McDonald's.
I
I'm
mean,
really good at customizing burgers,
yeah.
and that's like I
That's
can
the
say no
important stuff,
tomato.
though.
um, except for I went back for a little bit and I remember I just got back and I went to McDonald's and I asked for 2 fries and instead of using the counter for 2 things, I said 2 people. It's like, hello, I would like 2 people of fries. Thank you.
Oh, cute.
Like already my brain started melting. We have another question. What are your favorite expressions in Japanese that don't exist in English?
Hmm. What do I like? What do I like? I mean, with all the aizuchi, like you were talking about before, with like naruhodo, so da ne, oh ne, like I always think those are always fun, kind of just to say. But what do I? I don't know if I actually have like an actual favorite expression. Like I've never, for me, I don't think I've thought about it that hard. Was like this one's my favorite that I like to use.
Mm-hmm.
But I do notice like with my speaking where there's always a lot of like making that kind of sound like aizuchi kind of thing. Yeah, ooh, like making those kind of sounds like after you're like here long enough or start speaking long enough, like you start using it
Yeah.
in English, but
Yeah.
it's just like it's not. It's just like a expressing like your interest in something like whoa, and it's just like
I
you just
remember I
start
remember
doing it.
my mom like used to complain about like she had a friend she talked to on the phone and she'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, the friend keeps saying like yeah, yeah, yeah. And, like every couple of words I say, it's like it's so annoying. Yeah, I know you're listening, stop it. And it's like in Japan, like that's what you do. Like you're supposed to say like
Yeah.
like you're supposed to make noises to indicate that you're still listening.
So I
Whereas I think
guess.
in America it's a little bit different. Like sometimes it can be a little rude to make too much
Mm-hmm.
noise.
Yeah.
Is like you're not acting and while they kind of go on. I remember she made a comment once. She was like, why do you keep making that sound? Because I had gotten in the habit of going like when like people are saying something kind of interesting, like to show that you're still listening. Like she was like, what
What are
is
you
that?
doing? Yeah.
What are you
I
doing?
guess if I had to pick a favorite one, even if it's not an actual word,
Mm-hmm.
I guess that one would be my
Hmm.
favorite.
I really like the various ways that they say I, like to refer to yourself, like
Oh, yeah.
watashi versus boku versus ore versus like I encountered them where they said like watashi. Like I've been watching the
Yeah.
Ghibli movies and in Japanese now that they're on HBO Max and uh they use a lot of the more creative eyes like
Oh.
watashi and those sort of
Mm-hmm.
things because uh to show different kind of fantasy worlds. I really like that you're like you can kind of tell a lot about so you can say a lot about yourself based on like the word for
Which I
I.
use,
Yeah.
yeah. Or even like
Um
with little kids, like at the elementary school I'm at, they split it into like a morning and afternoon class. So there's some of the morning kids who are actually in the afternoon, but they're too little to be by themselves at home. Parents are at work. So I went and hung out with all of them, and it's cute because like they use their name as to say I.
mhm.
It's just like, well, I went to the park today, and it's different. To like I went to the park today. There's something more cutesy about saying like it was gonna sound weird, but like Courtney went to the park today, but you're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about
because
yourself.
yeah, it's definitely a lot more acceptable to speak
Mm-hmm.
about yourself as in the third person.
Yeah.
Um but someone asked if we use any special ones. I just use watashi. I didn't No.
I don't
Oh,
think.
sometimes I would go full femme and I just say atashi. I would drop the W and say
Oh,
atashi wa
oh, cute. No, I
atashi
don't
ne.
think. I don't think I've ever. I've always just used watashi, or
Yeah.
even sometimes I just don't. I get try to make sentences that don't really use I, because in the
Mm,
context or whatever, we know that we're talking about myself.
yeah, yeah,
Sometimes it's usually always end up like, well, talking about like family or this, and then how it relates to me, but not.
yeah.
I always
If
feel like I use I think a lot, like tomo, tomo. Like I
mm,
think this, I think that, but I don't say like I.
yeah, yeah. If there's anyone here who's watching either live or the VOD, um, just if you're trying to learn Japanese, pronouns, just take the foot off the pedal. Like most of them you don't need unless like you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about various people, and usually
Mm-hmm.
you can just use names. um like yeah, you don't need to say like watashi wa at the beginning of each sentence,
Yeah.
because if you've already established through context that you're talking about yourself, then you're good.
Then you're good.
If you're then switching, like you're talking about your friend like Noriko, and then you switch and then you like throw in your own, you might want to say like, watashi ni tote or something like that, like,
Yeah.
you know throw in an I or two, but like, yeah, I feel like my high school Japanese teacher told us that like the biggest sin you could commit as a like learning student to like show that you're kind of amateurish is to say
Mm-hmm.
watashi no namae wa Teira desu, like what saying my name is blank,
Mm-hmm.
like literally. Like it does come up sometimes, but most people don't. They don't say watashi no namae wa. They just say their
Yeah.
name. Teira desu. Teira
Yeah.
shimasu. Yeah. Um, yeah, Japanese is interesting. I miss studying it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping if I have time and money and things can reopen, that I can find like a tutor or somebody to try to brush up. Because
That's what I kind of want to do too. Even though it's
yeah,
like, oh, Courtney, you have the N1, you beat the
but
game, or but there's so many things I don't know and don't
yeah,
understand. So it's like there's so many more things to learn.
and the JLPT too is all reading and
Mm-hmm.
listening. There's
Mm-hmm.
no,
Speaking. So
you don't have to write. There's no, you don't have to produce any sort of Japanese on
right.
your own. So it's very like one dimensional,
Yes.
which I think is like, I think that's why like we like the N3 was so easy, because it was like things that you will just encounter all the time just being in
Right.
Japan. Like I remember, I think like I remember one of the problems on the N3 was like for listening was like an elevator. And it was like, how do you say go ahead? And it's like, I hear the phrase saki ni dozo 18,000
Mm-hmm.
times a day.
But
Like,
then
I
you
don't,
go to like the N1 level and they purposely make it tricky where it's like, I'm buying a laptop for my daughter and I only really need it for
the
the
laptop
internet.
example.
Yeah. And like I needs to be under like 8,000 yen or something. And then the guy starts talking and instead of being like laptop A, B, or C, he's like, well, the diamond one can do this and then the star one can do this. And it wasn't until he was like almost to the third one, like the pearl laptop does this. I was like, those are the laptop's names. Oh my gosh. I was taking notes, but I didn't know what I was talking about. And then they keep going back and forth. Was well, the diamond one has this, but I want the antivirus software, and it doesn't have that. Also, this one's more expensive. Da, da, da. Oh, but actually, I'm going with the diamond one. Like it's just like a weird. Like they go back and forth and purposely
Yeah.
make it tricky.
Though as
So
someone who has worked retail for many years, that is kind of how the conversations go of
I mean,
like,
yeah,
wait, what? We're talking about this first one and not the third thing that I just
yeah.
showed you? Okay, I guess we'll go back.
So I mean, I guess it's realistic in that sense, but it
Yeah.
was kind of funny, like listening to the other people afterwards. They were like, "Oh yeah, I picked, diamond again. I can't remember any of the stuff," and I was like, "Everyone else picked A, and I picked C, the star one." So it's like, things like that. I was like, who was right, who was wrong? I wish we could get the answers, like what the
Yeah.
actual answers were back afterwards, which I guess makes sense because they probably use it for like the practice tests and stuff, so they can't give it to us if we took the test. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I really want to know was I right or were they right? Like,
You
did
know,
they pass? Like, I want to know who else passed. Like, I don't like the people in my row and that person over there that I looked at. It's like, did they pass? Did they make it? How did we compare? Like, I guess there doesn't really shouldn't compare yourselves, but I don't know.
well,
It's just I'm just curious. Like, how did you
it's,
do?
it's it's a good resource too to see what you got wrong and like
Yeah,
be able to
exactly.
study. Um, I got really, I don't know why that reminds me. I remember when we had to write essays in Japanese class, I would, my essays were always very good because I would have them proofread before I submitted them. Like
Mm-hmm.
not like I'd have someone rewrite it for me, but I would post it online and I'd have people like kind of point out
Give
if I made any
feedback.
mistakes. They give feedback. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I remember and she would have us rewrite the essays.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you remember that? She like having to
Yeah.
rewrite the essays, and so she would make her corrections too, and then you'd have
Mm-hmm.
to rewrite it with her corrections,
Yes.
and then resubmit it. So like so you could really like write out and get it. And I remember I had
Yeah.
to rewrite my entire like 800 character essay to fix one particle
Oh.
because I put de instead of ni, and everything else was
No.
perfect, but I had to rewrite the whole thing, and we had to handwrite it into the square,
Yeah.
um, just to fix that one little particle. And I was
But now
like,
you won't forget. Now you won't forget that
I know.
particle.
I was like, okay, well now I know that you use ni in the situation because I'm going to resent this for the rest of my life.
It worked.
Well, I'm kind of have my last question, since we're coming up on like almost 2 hours now.
That went by fast.
It did go by fast. Kind of, do you have any kind of wrap things up? What are your favorite memories of our college days? I want to know. I want to reminisce. Reminisce with
Okay.
Courtney.
Um, honestly, like a little bits from the dorms where it's
Mm,
like for whatever crazy reason, I was like, I'm gonna ride my bike to school and ride the crazy
yes.
long hour or whatever it took to get to school. But I wake up at 5 a.m. I don't like getting up in the morning, but somehow I became a morning person. I don't know. I'd wake
Yeah.
up at
Well, when I asked like when do you want to do the stream, and you're like, I can do it like 7:30. I'm like, we have time. We can do it later.
well now that I'm getting used to like getting up at like 6 a.m. again. So it's like, okay, now my body's getting back used to it. But no, during college I wake up at 5 or about 5, I think. I go downstairs and see all the people who had not written their essays in time and were staying up overnight to do it last minute.
Yes.
Which were also the people I was going to like
Yeah.
be roommates
It
with.
was like
But
Maggie and
mhm. And so I'd come down, I'd make pancakes because I had a huge pancake kick. And so I would just make pancakes. Then I would turn on the TV for like the 6 a.m. or whatever time it was, little like opening thing, which usually was like a Beetle Volkswagen. It was like a mint green color. And it was just a video of it driving through like some roads to some kind of whatever new music of the day it was. And I watched that. And then usually like the cleaning lady would come in, and she was my favorite. I mean, we didn't really talk, but we just kind of hung out with each other. And I remember one time she was watching like the TV, the TV was on and it had some random whatever the random variety show, but they were talking about plants. And like I see her like with a sponge or whatever, and she's wiping the table, and then slowly she starts like slowing down, and then to like sit down in the chair. So I mean, I was also sitting there watching the TV, and it's like, well, I gotta go to school now. So I picked up the remote and just went like place it next to her like this. And it's like, okay, bye. And she's like, oh, thanks. So those are my favorite kind of memories from like the dorms and stuff.
Yeah, the dorms were an experience. I feel
It
like
was
we
different.
could do a whole thing just swapping stories about
Yeah.
that dormitory. It was like,
I feel like your stories are probably a lot more wild than mine. I don't know. I was just like, maybe because I was on the other end of the hall. So it was a very different experience, I think.
yeah, I actually, yeah, thinking about it, it's like, I know we talked about like the girl who had the illegal ferret.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had people who like, because I had roof access, they kept wanting to like climb through my window to go out onto the roof and then would leave footprints on my
Mm-hmm.
wall. um, and also like kind of living out like I was actually right at the very end before I got to the stairs too. So like I heard everybody like stumbling up. I know,
Coming up and down.
yeah, I know the kind of the friends that I hung out with too, where I think we're also a little bit of a rowdier bunch than
Mm-hmm.
you hung out with.
Yeah, no, I think I was definitely with some
I know
of the
there was a group of
more
girls who would Fridays
quiet.
to go clubbing.
Yeah, no,
And
I was definitely
yeah,
with the more quiet girls.
yeah.
Like the most, not like disturbing or whatever thing you want to call it, was with like Maggie, who she left for school or something, but forgot she left her alarm on or didn't like it came back on. And it was loud because I guess she was a heavy sleeper. Like it just kept going on and on and on and on and on, and woke everybody else up and on and on. And it was like, okay, we can't get into this room to stop the alarm from going off. Eventually, I can't remember if it was the dorm manager who came and like turned it back off, or if she came home or something. But I just remember everyone was like pissed, and my room was like right next to hers.
Yeah, Maggie was she was like 5'10", really sturdy girl from Germany. I remember once there was a cockroach in the common room, and cockroaches in Japan fly. And so they were trying to chase down this cockroach, and then it flew. And I was sitting on the couch, and Maggie like let out the loudest shriek I've ever heard, and then like leapt onto my lap with her arms around my neck like Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. I was just sitting there, and she got so freaked out by this giant girl. Like, I mean, smaller than me still, but like, yes, I know. Like jumped up into my. People are asking about Ferret was the girl who lived next to me. I think she was from Taiwan or something, so. Hong Kong or something.
Somewhere around there.
So she was very private. That's why everyone came to my room instead of her room, because she also had roof access, but she didn't talk to many people, and she refused to open her door. I was a little more, I was naive. I let them in.
So don't talk to me unless it's about my ferret, basically.
Yes. So she kept her thing closed all the time. She never ever like let anyone into her room. And we found out, I think kind of halfway through the term, because she got in trouble, because it turns out that she had brought a ferret with her from her home. It was like her emotional support ferret. We weren't allowed to have pets in the dorm, like not even fish, no pets whatsoever. I think Shanda and I won a fish at like there was like a little matsuri in the neighborhood, and she and I tried to do like
the goldfish
scoop. Tried to do the thing booth, the scoop, and we didn't do very well. And he took pity on us, and I think it was kind of late in the night anyway, so he gave us 2 free goldfish, and we took them. And they died, but before we could transfer them into a bowl. Yeah, so I think that was allowed. I think we could have had the goldfish in like the common area, but
yeah, but it makes sense. Of course you can't pets there. First of all, you're only there for like only 1 semester.
Yeah.
And can you imagine how much more worse that like the dorms would be if people had animals?
Yeah. So she brought her illegal ferret in, and I think she got found out because she finally ordered a cage. This ferret had been loose in her room, and then she would bring it with her to school in her purse. Which, I mean, ferrets are pretty big. Like they're like chihuahuas. They can just chill in a bag.
Yeah, but they're mischievous. They like to go around. Yeah. They like to explore. They like to build a nest. So I feel bad. Well, like being stuck in her purse all day.
So I think she got found out at cage, and it got delivered to her door, and this giant ferret cage was sitting outside of her door. And the dorm manager was like,
what the heck is this for?
Why else would you be ordering a ferret cage if you don't have a ferret? Yeah. Turns out, actually, because at our dorm, we had Aki, who was like the Japanese dorm manager. And then we had a guy from school who was kind of like the RA. And he had his own like nice room kind of above the kitchen. And I remember, I think it was the girl who would eventually become my roommate. She was kind of buddies with him, and so he would go on these school trips and stuff to help chaperone, and so he would have her like go in and water his plants. And I remember being like, oh hey, cool, like you're watering his plants, like I can go hang out and see what his room looks like. And she's like, oh no, I'm not allowed to let anyone else go into the room. Like it's weird, you're just watering plants, like we're gonna like I'm gonna be your roommate, like we're like on our way to becoming best friends, like why I won't come with you while you go to water the plants.
Yeah.
And it turns out he also had a ferret.
Oh.
or something. Yeah, he also had an illegal ferret in his room. And so she wasn't watering the plants so much as she was feeding the ferret, and she couldn't bring anyone with her because then they would find out.
Found out.
Yeah. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. What other things happened in the dorm? Everyone played Heavy Rain at some point.
Oh yeah, they played Heavy Rain, and me and Maggie, we played Siren. It was a horror game, and it was hilarious because she would scream at everything, which her scream was so loud it would scare me more. But also, like in the game, I mean, you didn't get very many weapons, but like, and the zombies would come back alive after a while. But like, she would get like, say, like a gun or something, and instead of like shooting the zombies, she would get scared and couldn't remember the controls, so she would just end up beating them instead with it. It was funny. And then I memorized the maps because you go to the same places multiple times.
Yeah.
So I'd have my, my hands over like this, and she's in the hospital. I'd be like, go left, go right, go up the stairs. No, 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 not that left. And then that room. So we were a pretty good team because we beat the game.
Yeah, that's not bad. Having somebody who can, because like, I feel like sometimes playing those games, like they purposely are trying to scare you so you get disoriented. So if you have someone who can be like, turn at this corner here, you can get through. What else happened? I know we smuggled in alcohol a couple times.
You did?
We weren't supposed to. Yeah. And then another girl who would become my roommate temporarily. I remember I was there when she had her first drink of vodka, her very first drink. And then she insisted she needed my help getting up the stairs because she was really drunk. And I was 18 and never had any sort of experience with alcohol before. But even I was like, you're fine. You're fine. Please use your legs.
Yeah. But it was just an interesting group of people.
It was.
Were there.
I know a lot of people who, because like to go to our school, I don't know why we're being like secret. We went to Temple University, like Japan campus, TUJ, the weeb school. At least when we started, now they have their big fancy dorms, is that you had the dorms, the Ontake-san dorms that we stayed in, which were kind of more of a traditional dorm setup, like everyone living together. They had dorms in Takada no Baba, which were like studio apartments.
Okay.
So like you were living in the same building, but it wasn't a dormitory.
You actually had like your actual own place.
Yeah, like you had like a kitchenette and a bathroom, and then you could do a homestay.
That's nice.
So I remember there were a lot of people who did either homestays or were in Takada no Baba who were like really jealous of the Ontake-san people because we kind of created this like core knit, like this core group, this close-knit core group of people all living together. I remember like people would like post on Facebook, they're like, I want to come to Ontake-san, can someone sign me in as their guest? And he'd be like, yeah, and then they just like go off and hang out with somebody else. Just be like, let me know what yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, now they share a dormitory with Showa Women's College. Yeah, so it's like an actual proper school. Proper. I'm losing the ability to speak. But yeah, no, it was a very weird experience. And then we all kind of like went our separate ways and moved into our own apartments, and it got really boring. Yeah.
No more crazy ferrets being smuggled in your apartment.
I mean, because if there was, we weren't there to see it. So
no.
And that's why I remember like going on a date once, and he was like kept wanting to like swap crazy college stories, and I was like, dude, like I like literally only lived in my school dorms for 3 months, like,
and that's the extent of it.
That's the extent of it. If you stay in your school dorms for 4 years, you have 4 weird years of weird things going on.
Oh yeah.
It's like after that, I then moved into an apartment, and yeah, we had our anecdotes with my roommates and stuff, but like then it became like, paying bills and cleaning the toilet. Like there wasn't anything.
It was just more like, I guess, like adult, just being a regular adult, I guess.
Yeah.
Kinda.
I know that's sort of the weird thing about like going to grad school in the States after going to even American school in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Was just how different seeing all the undergrads around me were. Like was totally different from the experience that we had. It was like, oh, you guys like have like parties and rallies and clubs and and like campus events and sports games. Like we didn't have any of that. Like people came to school for their classes and then they left.
Yeah.
Like nobody was interested in hanging out past I guess the first semester.
Yeah, I mean, until you made like your core group of friends, and then it was like, okay, we'll go here for dinner, go here, mm-hmm. But it's just different. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
it's
different for
different.
what was available, so
Yeah.
makes sense.
I know, like I apparently it's a stereotype for like NYU grads to be like, the city was my campus, but literally was. The city was our campus because
Yeah.
our actual campus was 6 floors of an office building with like a little cafeteria area,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was it. So if you didn't want to have to like squeeze in to what, like, if you couldn't get one of the private study rooms to hang out in, remember that semester where we like would stay in that one study room for like 12 hours every
Yes.
day. People would come and go as they had classes, and then
Yes.
people must have hated us. We were not studying in there.
I mean, other people were just hanging out too anyway, so.
Yeah. uh so like if you couldn't get a private study room, or you didn't want to have to deal with the lounge, which had a bunch of gross couches and video game systems,
And then the people eventually put one corner to
somewhere
like
else
be
in
like a
Tokyo.
gym.
Yeah.
So that
Ooh,
was gross.
that was gross. Yeah, you had to go find somewhere else to be, and you had the entire city of Tokyo to pick from. So
It's not a bad option.
it wasn't. Yeah, no, I feel like we had a lot more fun like going to Odaiba after
Oh
classes than
yeah.
we ever did like hanging out on school with a
Oh,
big group
for
of people.
sure.
But yeah, that's kind of, those are all the questions I prepared. Did you have
Okay.
anything you wanted to say, or I don't know, something you that
I mean, not really. I didn't prepare as much as you did.
I
Just about,
my
just more.
I just had a, you don't even think you can see it. I just had a bunch of
Oh,
questions on my phone on the notes app. Wrote it
real.
in like 5 minutes.
It was just more so like, oh, I'm just happy to talk about my week and like how the students are all like, I'm sure they're shy, but they're happy to see me. Some were really funny. Like one girl, as soon as she saw me, she went, "Wow, so beautiful, so stylish." Just like, yeah, it's kind of a confidence booster. Or like
Thank
my
you.
favorite was the one boy who he walked up towards me. I mean, his desk was towards the front. So he kind of walks up towards his desk. He looks at me and he like struck a pose like a model, and then he sat down.
I
So
love Japanese kids. I remember I had a 5-year-old once. It was like my last lesson with them, or it was gonna be my like second to last lesson. And the Japanese teacher who was with me was like, "This is gonna be Taylor Sensei's last week with you next week, so you should write her a letter to like, to show your thanks."
yeah.
And there was this little 5-year-old or 6-year-old named Minato, and he was like, "I don't want to." And he goes,
Oh.
"Minato, why?" He goes, "I don't understand the shape of her glasses."
Oh.
It was cute.
I had that reminds me of the elementary school with the kids that I was playing with in the morning. Like one girl, she's like, you're kind of scary. I'm not really used to like foreigners or whatever. And so I was like, well, if I make myself, is it because I'm tall? She's like, yeah. And then I made myself like short, like small or whatever. If I do this, am I less scary? Nah, you're still scary. But then she asked me the most questions where
Yeah.
she's like, I think if you took off your glasses, like I took off my glasses, like, yeah, you look better with your glasses off. So you should leave your glasses off. And then like you need more colorful shirts. I had like a white one that I was wearing that day or whatever. You need more colorful shirts. Oh, but this and this, and then like, oh, my mom is this, and my dad did it, and my sister is this old, and I'm this. Like, it's like I thought I was scary. Why are you like, she talked to me the most, but
Yeah.
apparently I was scary. Like it was funny. Or like the kids are just like, my daddy can speak English. Guess what? You know what word I know in English? Purple.
Oh my
I
goodness.
know this color. This is blue. And then they didn't know like green. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's green.
Oh,
I know
she's
how to. Oh, she's excited. I know how to say good night, hello, how are you? Like they were like listing off all the things they could say. It was adorable. So they are. It's the elementary school is going to be fun. So I'm kind of bummed I only
it's
go
time
like
to feed her.
once a week. So,
Yeah.
but I think as the situation gets better, I think it's going to be fun. I think I'm really going to enjoy like teaching English actually.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you to get into it, because I know I felt really bad because you got there and you had like 2 kind of awkward weeks, and then you just worked from home, and
Hmm.
then it was like you don't even get to do the fun part, which is interacting with kids.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole reason why you do it, right? Is to interact with kids, and
Yeah.
you can't
Have
even do
fun.
that. Oh my goodness.
I don't know if anyone had any like real quick last minute questions or if we answered everyone else's questions in the comments.
There is a bit of a lag. I'll give
Oh,
anyone a
okay.
chance to ask any last minute questions if they have anything that they've been wondering about. This will be available as like a video on demand once we're done. Pretty sure. So that'll be available if you the last part of it or whatever.
Okay.
But I don't even really know how long the lag is because
Who knows?
like people comment and I'm like, I can't even remember what I said in the last 5 seconds.
It's like I feel like it's like, did I answer the question or did I just go on a tangent? Tangent that had
That's what
made no sense.
this whole thing, it was just meant to be a tangent. So for me, I got to get drunk and talk about the Kojiki, which I don't get to do anymore. Okay, while we wait for last questions, can I tell the traumatic story of
Yes.
the Kojiki, my interview? Because I think editing one of the episodes, I realized I had said like I will tell the story of that next time, and then I never did. So I finished with my master's last year, about a year ago. And so the whole reason why I got my master's was because I wanted to become an English teacher. And I don't have a bachelor's degree in English. I have a bachelor's degree in Asian studies with a focus on literature and history, but like not quite the same. And I haven't read it. At the time I hadn't read like any English classics since high school. So I was like, I could study and try to pass the CSET, which is the California subject something test, that tests your subject knowledge. And or I could go get my master's, which would satisfy a lot of those requirements, brush up my knowledge level.
Right.
And also, if you have a master's, you make more money. So 3 birds with 1 stone.
Nice.
So I got my master's and I was kind of burned out from school. It was fun, but I was very tired of writing 20-page essays. And so, but I was like, okay, this is what I came here for. So I started applying for the teaching credential program at the same university, which was very stressful. You had to do like 40 hours of classroom observation, 30 or 40 hours of classroom. You had to like write a bunch of essays. You had to have like 3 letters of recommendation. I applied to grad school on a whim, Courtney. I had to just fill out the application and write like a 400-word personal statement, and I was in. Send them my transcripts. I was in.
That was easy. A lot easier than I thought it would be.
It was super easy. I didn't have to take anything. But the teaching credential program was pretty rigorous. And so I really stressed myself out. Like October and November were spent. September too was like spent trying to get this stuff done. It was like all I was doing. And then I had my interview on November 1st. And my interview, I was told by the head of the program that the interview was kind of more to determine if you had the personality for teaching, if you could talk to people. There was a mock lesson, and so it was to see if you could like teach well or present sort of thing. And so she said like it doesn't have to be English related. She gave examples of somebody told us about like soccer strategies, and somebody taught us how to play the guitar and that sort of thing. So I was like, I'm going to talk about the Kojiki because that's what I like to talk about. Very fun, and I love retelling these stories. And it was also kind of relevant because it was around the time, because like Newa had already started that spring, but this was he finally finished his enthronement ceremonies and finally officially took that throne like a week or 2 before. So I typed up this like 15-minute thing where I retold the stories. I had made a worksheet so they could follow along, and like connect things and ask some questions. And I went there, and the women destroyed me. They like nitpicked on the essays I'd written about like how I would teach something, and they like were focusing in on the fact that I didn't know how to properly describe grammar through technical terms.
But they said it didn't have to be about English.
yeah, but like so they were interviewing me like about, I thought it was gonna be about my work experience and that sort of thing, but it was more on like talking about the essays I'd written, where I would like, okay, here's how I would give feedback on this essay, or here's how I would
Okay.
teach this poem. And so they were like nitpicking on that, and she's like, well, you know, like you use the words. I'm like I've never taken a formal grammar class. Like I don't know the actual terminology right now. And she's
Hmm.
like, well, you can't teach if you don't know the terminology, which I was talking to my friend who got into the program, and she was like, they didn't ask me that. I've never taken a grammar class. I don't know how to do any of that either. But yeah, like they straight up like told me like that I was going to be a bad teacher. One of them said like uh she said verbatim like uh, if you teach in this area, there's a good chance one of my grad in your class,
Hmm.
and I don't want them to be in your class, and you don't want them to be in your class either, because I would come down and have some words with you. And I was just like, oh my god, I
They
haven't
don't have
even.
to be so rude.
Yeah, and I remember asking
Like, was it really that bad? Like, Jesus.
I remember asking like is there like, if I get into the program, like what, how many classes are there that will teach me like how to teach these things? And they're like, virtually none. It's going to
Then
be
what's the
like,
point of the
they're like, it's going to be about building your curriculum, and
program?
yeah, it's good, like building curriculums and like dealing with kind of the more the administrative stuff, but like
Oh,
not that much like of the actual, here's how you teach English. So I was like, okay, well that's kind of setting you up for failure,
okay.
because if you already have to know how to teach before you applied for the teaching credential program, like it doesn't make
Then how are
sense.
you gonna learn? Okay.
And I thought like, okay, well my, at least my lesson is good. So I did my lesson. I was very nervous because they'd been like insulting me up until that point, and I was finished. And I asked them their questions for kind of for discussion, and they had
Mm-hmm.
their things so they could follow along, and they just sat there.
Oh,
They hadn't marked up the sheet. They hadn't they
they
didn't
didn't
engage.
participate really.
They didn't engage with what I'd prepared at all. And then I was like, okay, well that's all I have. And like, okay, well what was the point of that? I was like, well, I taught you some myths and things and some symbolism that also tie into world politics. And they're like, but
Yeah.
what does that to do with anything?
The
It's
world? What?
it's an important thing. I was like, I'm sorry, like I might have been under the wrong impression with this part, because I was told that like people in the past have like taught how to have like, have taught how to play the guitar or something. They're like, well, at least they're like, but playing the guitar has like practical value.
But not
So that
knowing
makes
about the
sense.
world?
So but this we don't see what the point of this is. And I was like, I don't have an answer for you. And then I went outside and I cried. And
I was gonna say
and then
world
I
history is important, right?
and yeah, and so I went outside and I cried a bunch, and then I had to go straight to work, which was pretty cool.
Oh,
And then they told me that I didn't get in, but they still wanted me to take classes and then redo the interview to be officially admitted in the
they just
spring.
want your money.
Yeah. And I told them I didn't respond. And then I got a follow up email, and I pretty much just I told her to pound sand.
Yeah.
I was like,
Like you want me to take lessons, but you humiliated me and made me like feel like less of a person and
yeah.
that I have nothing to provide. How dare you ask me to
Yeah,
want to come back?
apparently it was just because I got two really bad interviewers. Like if I'd
They
gotten
just
other
weren't.
professors, they wouldn't have nitpicked like that.
Yeah.
And because they had the program, I was like, well, you'd have other professors. We wouldn't assign you to the same women. And I was like, nah, I'm good.
My thing is, you have people that do that kind of stuff, and then they totally like, I guess, discourage people who could have like been really good teachers.
Right, and it felt so
So
gatekeepy. It was like
yeah.
like, don't you want to encourage a new generation of, like, it wasn't even like what the criticism that they were giving me, which to be fair was valid. Like I I forgot what blank verse was.
Hmm.
I can usually define blank verse, but I was so nervous I couldn't remember how to describe blank verse. Um,
Right.
and so so like it's like there was criticism, but they said it in such a demeaning way. Like, and they were also kind of like
Mm.
snarky too, that they were like that I had studied Japanese literature, and they were like, or at one point she was like, a lot of the students in this area are English second language, but first language Spanish. They're not Japanese. And it's like, what does that mean? Why'd you say it like that? Like,
I wonder why.
yeah. So yeah, no, I ended up not going with that program, which kind of worked
it's
out.
Understandable.
Yeah, I was gonna quit my job too and like keep living at home until I was done with the program, but because I didn't do the program and I kept working, I got promoted, and actually now I can afford my own place, so it kind of worked out in the end.
Yeah.
But and then this whole thing happened, and I'm really glad to not be in teaching right now because I have a friend who's starting her student teaching in the fall, and I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what like public schools look like. Yeah, so I'm glad to not be part of that. But
blessing in disguise. Yay.
Yeah, so I just decided to tell that story the last couple of minutes of our stream here, since I did mention on the podcast and then never got to it. And
whoops.
Yep. But yeah, there haven't been any other questions, so I think that we can kind of wrap it up. It's been about 2 hours. I was gonna go to another protest after this, but it's over in like an hour, and it's like a 30-minute walk, and I haven't eaten dinner, and I'm tired, and it's hot.
It's like, I'm gonna do laundry.
Yes. Fighting the real fight.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have.
That's all I got too.
Thanks for tuning in, pals. Yeah. This was fun. I know we were talking about ourselves and not about Terrace House, but I think it was kind of nice to have a break.
Yeah.
From Terrace House, but still talk to each other.
Yeah.
With all the things going on in the world, kind of taking a break from.
I agree.
Yes.
And actually, like, I guess having the chance to like interact with the listeners, because I guess in my mind it still feels like, oh, it's just me and Taylor and
talking into the void,
or in our 5 friends who listen. And it's like, oh no, actually I guess people like us, so that's kind of cool. So it's kind of cool, like to interact and answer questions and stuff. I like that.
Yep.
Even if I don't answer them very well.
No, apparently you did a good job. People commented kindly. But yeah, that's all we got. Thanks for tuning in. If you're catching this later, if you're watching this later,
sorry.
If you're watching this later. Thanks for making through 2 hours. I was not expecting this to be 2 hours. Let's just be an hour, but we had fun. So it was nice to talk and catch up and reminisce. So thank you. Thanks for coming to our housewarming party.
Yes, welcome. Or I guess thank
Courtney's house to see my shelf of manga. I have, just showing real fast, I have nonfiction on this shelf here. I have manga on this shelf here.
Nice.
The one next to it is graphic novels. And then I have another one the same size as the manga one for fiction. So
nice. Maybe next time I'll have more of an interesting background and not like, my door to my other room. White door,
yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you. Courtney, you can take it away.
All right. Well, this has been Terrace Neighbors. Thank you so much for listening.
And please go to bed.
Go to bed.